His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is called Stoka saying the whole world of Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Bol. Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. Chapter 9, Answers by citing the Lord's version. Text 43. Tuṣṭaṁ niśāmya pitaram. Tuṣṭaṁ niśāmya pitaram. Tuṣṭaṁ niśāmya pitaram. Sorry, it is niśāmya. Tuṣṭaṁ niśāmya pitaram. Lokānāṁ prapitāmaham. Lokānām prapitāmaham. Lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mā anupṛcchati. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. Others also chant. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. Vinagopal. tuṣṭam niśāmya pitaram. lokānām prapitāmaham. devarṣiḥ paripapraccha. bhavān yad mānupṛcchati. tuṣṭam, satisfied. niśāmya, after seeing. pitaram, the father. lokānām, of the whole universe. prapitāmaham, the great grandfather, devarṣiḥ, the great sage Nārada, paripapraccha, inquired, bhavān, yourself, yet as it is, mā, from me, anupṛcchati, inquiring. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The great sage Nārada also inquired in detail from his father Brahmā, the great grandfather of the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Please repeat this translation. The great sage Nārada also inquired in detail from his father Brahmā, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster. The schoolmasters in the modern days are paid agents for giving some information. But a spiritual master is not a paid agent. Nor can he impart instruction without being authorized. In the Bhagavad-gītā 4.34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tad vidhi pranipātena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender, questions and service. Pranipāta, pariprashna, seva. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. As Brahmāji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.23, Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite kathita hyartha prakāśante mahātmanah. Only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. Such relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. One cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Brahmāji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Nārada, and similarly Nārada, as spiritual master, handed over this knowledge to Vyasa, and so on. Therefore, the so-called former spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahmā and Nārada or Nārada and Vyasa. The relationship between Brahmā and Nārada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and cheated. It is clearly mentioned herewith that Nārada is not only well-behaved, meek and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, specifically in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the body and the genitals. One who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as a dead great-grandfather, as we have experience on this planet. He is the oldest great-grandfather and he is still living. And Nārada is also living. Speak of living spiritual master and yet what is Prabhupada? Brahma is the oldest great-grandfather and he is still living. And Nārada is also living. The age of the inhabitants of the Brahmaloka planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad-gītā. The inhabitants of this small planet, Earth, can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. Thus ends the Bhakti-vedanta purport. Om ajnana-timirandasya jnananjana-shalakaya chakshurmilitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschakya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's a very significant purport because portions of this are quoted by some people who want to prove some living guru philosophy. The context is that Nārada is inquiring from Brahmā about, what is he inquiring about? The energies of Vishnu, all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. Vishnu, who is the master of all energies. Nārada wants to know that. And he is inquiring in detail. And he is making this inquiry after satisfying Lord Brahmā. So Prabhupada elaborately explains in the purport that the process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not like ordinary exchange of knowledge that happens in the material world. First of all, the spiritual master who explains such transcendental knowledge is not a paid agent. That means no material qualification or material method of exchange is valid in transcendental knowledge or transcendental subject matter. Nor can he impart instruction without being authorized. To impart instruction, playing the role of a spiritual master has to be authorized. Because it is said here, the spiritual master should be a realized person. So, who is going to certify that the spiritual master who is imparting knowledge is realized person? Who is going to certify? Are you going to certify? His guru. See how it is so pakka, the system. He does not become self-authorized. He does not become authorized by anyone else other than his own guru. Because his guru is a realized soul, his guru is qualified to certify, yes, my disciple is realized. Otherwise, who can certify? What are the basis of somebody else certifying? There's no basis. So, note this very carefully. Prabhupada is clearly explaining. The spiritual master has to be realized. And he is certified by whom? By his spiritual master who is realized. And the process is explained in the Bhagavad-gītā, 4th chapter, 34th verse, that Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person, Tattvadarshinaha, by surrender, questions and service. So one has to surrender. So to place the surrender in the spiritual master, one has to search out for a proper person in whom he can place the surrender. Because what happens, if the surrender is misplaced, then it's very, very dangerous, very risky business. Like it happens. In the material world we see many times it happens. In ISKCON also it has happened. Wrongly placed surrender has led to havoc in the spiritual life of the disciple. And it keeps happening. And the Bhagavatam describes that once a great devotee, Bali Maharaj, he wrongly placed his faith in Shukracharya. And when he discovered, oh, this Shukracharya is not a bona fide spiritual master, immediately he rejected him. Immediately rejected him. So Shastra is very, very particular that you place your surrender in a bona fide spiritual master. That's why it is essential that a spiritual master is selected who is realized and who is authorized by his spiritual master who is also a realized person. So that's why we go on tracing backward. If you ask how is Prabhupada a bona fide spiritual master, I will say he is realized. How would you say he is realized? Because he has got a realized spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has certified him as a realized person. Then you ask one step before you go, how is he realized? How is he bona fide? How is he authorized? You go back to his spiritual master. Ultimately, you go back and you come to Krishna, who is the ultimate source, origin of everyone and everything. And therefore, the whole parampara becomes authorized, becomes bona fide, becomes authoritative. You see, the same principle that Prabhupada is talking here, you can apply to Vyasa, you can apply to Nārada, you can apply to Brahmā, you can apply to anybody in our parampara. Now we are talking about specifically the pure devotee parampara. We are not talking of any other parampara. There are so many other paramparas. There are Rajarshi paramparas, there are devarṣiḥ paramparas, there are Brahmarshi paramparas. There are so many different paramparas. So those paramparas are different. They have their own system of authorization. Just like in a conventional mutt, one is selected to sit as the head of the mutt and act as the authority for so many matters concerning the mutt. But the system is not the system mentioned this particular, described here by Prabhupada. That's not the system.
There is no certification of the mud head being the realized soul. There is no system that necessarily he has to be appointed by the predecessor mud head. So they have their system and they follow that. Many times people mistake that to be the system for selecting a bona fide spiritual master. No, that is not the system. That mud system is not the system of selecting a bona fide spiritual master. Many people can't understand this even in ISKCON. I think ISKCON is like a traditional matha or a modern version of a matha. No, ISKCON is not a matha. In this regard, ISKCON is not a matha. So here specifically Prabhupada points out that one has to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender. So I am explaining that surrender has to be properly placed. Questions, the questions are allowed to be asked only after one has satisfied the spiritual master by proper service. That's why the word is qualified in the Bhagavad-gītā, pariprashnena sevaya. Pariprashna. Pariprashna means asking questions submissively. In a humble mood, one has to ask questions. And with the exclusive purpose of trying to understand, trying to know, trying to realize the subject matter. Not with the idea of testing the Guru. Not with the idea of gathering knowledge to become a scholar. Not with the idea of gathering some knowledge to make a lot of money, to become famous, to become the next Guru. No. It is only with the desire for realization, self-realization. And that also after having satisfied the Guru by service. Therefore it says here, surrender, questions and service. It is service which makes it pariprashna. And particularly it is told about Nārada. After seeing that Brahmā was well satisfied by Nārada's service, then Nārada began to ask him questions. See, Nārada is asking after he is satisfied Brahmā. And Prabhupada says, the spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. So, one has to strive to satisfy the spiritual master by service. And satisfaction of the spiritual master means one has to surrender. One has to surrender. Without surrender, there is no question of even attempting to satisfy the spiritual master. So surrender means you have to ask him. You have to find out what service he wants you to render to him. Then only it is surrender. If you do some service which he is not asking you to do or which he is not expecting you to do, then that is not surrender. That is not surrender. Surrender means you have to find out what exactly he wants you to do. And then only it becomes surrender. So surrender, service and satisfaction of the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasada. Only by satisfying my spiritual master, I can satisfy Krishna. This is Vishwanath Thakur's statement, Acharya's statement. So there is an aspect of satisfying the Guru. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. That means mundane knowledge is useless in assimilating transcendental knowledge. Now here, Prabhupada says, the relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. Eternal means, it means a lot of things. One thing is that such relationship is not a material relationship. It is not based on body. It is not based on body. Therefore, one cannot say that I need to approach a living guru. Living in the sense of materially living. Flesh and blood and bones. No, this is not the basis. Because the relationship is eternal, and such a spiritual master, as is explained, Prabhupada particularly mentions to clarify this point, Brahmā is the oldest great-grandfather and he is still living. And Nārada is also living. So they are not visible to us. We cannot approach them the way we approach a so-called living person. But still, we should understand they are eternally spiritual masters and they are still living. They are not visible to us, but still they are living. So, then read, now hear this statement by Prabhupada. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. This statement is taken out of context and used and misused and abused for so many different reasons. One who is now the spiritual disciple is the next spiritual master. Now, does this mean that I am a disciple and just because I am a disciple, based on this statement I can say I am now a disciple, so I am the next spiritual master? It's the principle that when one has been a proper disciple, only then one can become the next spiritual master. It is stating that the spiritual master also has to be a proper disciple before he becomes a spiritual master. It does not automatically qualify all disciples to become next spiritual masters. It is stating a qualification of the guru. But again, one should not take it like this is the only qualification. Obviously, the other qualifications mentioned are also important. What is that? Authorized by the previous spiritual master. He is a realized soul. And Prabhupada, to clarify that, he mentions that one who is not self-controlled, particularly in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. See, even mentioning disciple. Why? Because one who is a disciple now is the next spiritual master. So what kind of disciple should he have been? He should have been a disciple who is self-controlled. And specifically he says, one must have received disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, tongue, mind, belly, genitals. Without becoming a Goswami, and such a person is called a Goswami, who has controlled his 6 agents of pushing agents, as Prabhupada says. Without becoming Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater. And the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. So if somebody is a spiritual master who is not a Goswami, who is not authorized by his predecessor spiritual master, who is not a realized soul, who has not been a disciple who was a Goswami, then Prabhupada says such a person is a cheater if he becomes a spiritual master. And the disciple of a so-called spiritual master is a cheated. This cheater and cheated, this is going on. So we have to be very, very careful. Because transcendental knowledge is not easily understood or revealed or received so easily. It's not merely studying some books or hearing some discourses. It is a question of realization. And realization is not cheap. Realization is very, 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 very difficult. As Prabhupada quotes Vetashvatara Upanishad, Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha guru. Parabhakti. Parabhakti is described in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam describes parabhakti. What does it say? The 6th verse of the 2nd chapter, the 1st canto. Yeah? Go to the first line, we told the second line. I know all the 3 lines except the first line. I'm getting it. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshate. So same thing. Paro dharmo, paradharma or parabhakti is the same thing. This parabhakti is possible only if one has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master. Yatha deve tatha guru. Nothing less. Tasya ite kathitahi arthaha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto such a person all the transcendental knowledge becomes automatically revealed. It's a question of revelation within the heart by the grace of the spiritual master and the Supreme Lord. And that is possible only if one progressively advances in Krishna consciousness and comes to the level of parabhakti, unflinching devotion to the Lord and the spiritual master. So it's not a cheap thing. Realization is not a cheap thing. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. What is it we sing every day in the Guru Puja? Chakshudan Diloye Janme Janme Prabhu se. Again the same principle. Spiritual master is eternal. There is no question of my spiritual master has passed away. No, he is eternally my spiritual master. Chakshudan Diloye Janme Janme. He opens my darkened eyes. Same prayer we offer. Ajnana timirandasya jnananjana shalapaya chakshuru militam yena. Chakshudan Diloye, same thing. Chakshuru militam yena. Janme Janme Prabhu says, Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashita. Such a spiritual master enlightens the disciple from within the heart. Prakashante mahatmanaha. Such great personalities who are actually bona fide. They are authorized. They are realized. They are Goswamis. They control their senses. They have been trained in disciplinary way to actually control the 6 pushing agents. And how many times Prabhupada said training is not complete? How many times Prabhupada said to his own disciple before he passed away, training is not complete. So here it's very clear that one has to be trained specifically in controlling these 6 pushing agents, and one should become a Goswami even as a disciple, and then such a Goswami, when he becomes realized by the grace of his spiritual master and the Supreme Lord, having come to the stage of parabhakti, and then he is authorized by his spiritual master to become the next spiritual master. So much qualification, so many conditions, so many details are there. And overlooking all these details, somebody becomes Guru. Or many of these details. Just as a matter of formality, somebody becomes Guru. The Prabhupada mentioned that formality also. He says here that therefore the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahmā and Nārada. They are not exactly like Brahma and Nārada. Nor are they like Nārada and Vyasa. Vyasa, how much tapasya he did. He is the incarnation of God. But he did so much of tapasya. Because he wants to set the example how one should actually undergo disciplinary training. Nārada, he underwent so much of tapasya. Brahmā, he underwent so much of tapasya. He is directly born. Atmabhu, Swayambhu. Nobody can be having qualification like Brahmā. Brahmā underwent severe tapasya. Why? To set an example for us. Otherwise he can directly become enlightened by Vishnu. And he can enlighten others after that. But just to set the example, he underwent tapasya. So without tapasya, and that specific tapasya, Rupa Goswami defines in Upadeshamrita. What is that tapasya for us now? We are not expected to go to the forest and sit there and do meditation like they formerly used to do. No, like Nārada did, Vyasa did. No. We are supposed to control by training, by disciplinary training, the 6 pushing agents. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jigva vegam, udaropastha vegam, etan vegam, yogishaheta dhiraha. We are supposed to become dhira by controlling the 6 pushing agents. Through training, through disciplinary training. And then one becomes a Goswami. That is what is mentioned here. One becomes a Goswami. As a disciple, one is a Goswami. Then, by proper authorization by his predecessor spiritual master, he becomes the next spiritual master. So when it says here, one who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master, it means that the spiritual master should have been a proper disciple. He cannot say, I become the Guru without having been a disciple. No. So it's one of the qualifications for the Guru. It is not that automatically somebody's disciple can claim to be a spiritual master after the physical departure of his Guru. It never happens like that. And in our parampara we can see so many gaps. What are the meaning of the gaps? One doesn't automatically become a Guru. That's the meaning of the gap. So, this has to be carefully understood how the parampara is coming down, the realized knowledge is coming down in parampara by proper surrender, sacrifice or service, questions and requiring the qualifications of parabhakti, unflinching devotion to the spiritual master and to the Lord, and the knowledge becoming revealed within the heart. So this is not a cheap thing. So we have to take it very seriously and very carefully, and therefore one should be careful to select the proper bona fide spiritual master in the light of all these explanations given by Prabhupada. I'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai.